Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. International relations are formed based on interest and not on liking or, disliking a certain kind of person or a certain kind of culture or climate. It's based on each country's interest, economic interest, geostrategic interest, and other interests that have to do with the country. So this pretense on our allies, yes, you are our allies, quote unquote, in crime. It's not that you are our allies because we're friends. There's no such a thing. Our interests coincide for some time, and when they don't coincide, they just separate. In this case, we have our friend and ally in Middle East, not that one because that's our boss. I'm talking about Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia is our friend because it has oil. Friend and ally. If Saudi Arabia would not have oil, Saudi Arabia would not even be mentioned unless they would mention some terrible sandstorms or something. All right, so this article comes from ABC News, and it's just an example of the real relationship between countries. Now, Biden warns there will be consequences for Saudi Arabia after oil production cut. This sounds very unfriendly coming from a friend. Imagine that you are a friend, you have another friend, and that friend has a little economic problem. And he has to, borrow some money from a bank or do something that you would not like because it might affect your, finances as well. And then you tell your friend that I'm warning you, there will be consequences if you try to look for your own interest over there. I'm going to look for my interest. Basically, that's what it is. But the way this is formulated, it is like this. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, I was a very naughty kid. You wouldn't say. And I've seen the principal or at least teachers many, many times, and I got smacked a lot of times. That's the way it was over there. And you were always warned about consequences and warned that you're going to get a beating again if you, don't follow directions or you don't stay in line or you scratch your butt while you do certain things. So this, I have a little bit of, I'm irritated when I hear this kind of threats and there will be consequences. Because for me, when someone tells you, in this case, Biden tells Saudi Arabia, it's like a teacher tells a child, a student, that there will be consequences. And I don't think that should be the relationship among countries in this 21st century, right? But hey, we know that is one thing what they say and a different thing what they do. In this case, Biden lets go or releases the reality. Yes, there will be consequences because that's the way friendships are ran in this world. All right, so let's see. President Joe Biden warned on Tuesday that Saudi Arabia would face consequences, end quote, after OPEC Plus last week announced the biggest cut in oil production since the start of the pandemic. Now, maybe there are some issues with the world economy. Maybe the United States has something to do with that as well as other countries. So maybe the fact that you are threatening or telling there will be consequences that we don't know what kind of consequences. Are you going to bomb Saudi Arabia? Are you going to kill the whatever is over there, King and Prince Salman? Are you going to do that? Are you going to do a regime change? What are you going to do? Are you going to invade? Are you going to bomb the whole country? What are the consequences? Because these are the usual methods used in this kind of when the American leaders speak about consequences. Usually something like that, and sanctions and all that. The thing here is that Saudi Arabia, and it's not only Saudi Arabia, that's OPEC Plus, that's some countries over there, it's not only one. I will not get into who's the boss over there and who's not, because there are countries with interests. Again, And I don't think Saudi Arabia has more influence on, let's say, Qatar. I don't even know if Qatar is one of the OPEC, but might be, more than the United States. I don't think Qatar is under Saudi Arabia's thumb, or under Russians, I was about to say, or Biden's. Now, this is a consequence of certain kind of policies that were implemented by United States as well as other weasels. So, why do I say weasels? Because we know what happened in the past 3 years and how things were ran, with the pandemic and all that. So these guys, you can say it's a reaction to that, and they have to protect their interest. United States has to protect its interest as well. But what are going to be the consequences, I wonder? Now, senior Democrats on Capitol Hill have condemned the decision by Saudi Arabia, de facto leader of the oil-producing alliance. That's not true, but if they want to call it that way, it is. It must be. I mean, nowadays, if you say you're a bird, you gotta be a bird, and you are a bird, and you have to make everybody else see you as a bird, because that's the way it is. But if you say that you are God, or you are the President of the United States, nobody sees you as that somehow. I don't understand why, but nevertheless. And if you can change the perception of others just by saying so, then why don't you say, well, my perception of you is not your perception of you. So if you say you're a bird, I say, no, my perception of you is that you're a cattle, or I don't know, a cow or something. Why my perception doesn't overrule your perception, and vice versa? Because it doesn't have logic. We're not there anymore. We're in la la land. So it says here that higher oil prices are seen as helping Russia, the world's second largest oil exporter, finance its war in Ukraine. Well, a lot of consequences happen, and you can't just, because there's a connection, it doesn't mean that, if you go and borrow some money from a bank, you're necessarily, conspiring with the banking system to destroy the world. I mean, you can't go that far. Now, I understand that you can't be this naive not to see that there could be a connection between, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and all that. But whose diplomacy failed? If you treat people with friends, with blackmails and, threats and regime change, and you do it, then everybody else is scared of you. They're afraid of dealing with you because all you have in your toolbox are threats and blackmails and regime change and bombardments for regime change. So then you look for someone else to, form a defense mechanism. Anyone would do that. If you have a bully in a neighborhood, you try to, align yourself with someone, get together so you fend yourself from that bully, or whatever you might think. It's self-preservation and interest. I mean, if you're alone, he can come and kick you in the teeth wherever he wants or she wants. But here you got 3 or 4, it's a little bit harder. So I understand, as he said, consequences. Well, maybe your actions, Biden, produced these consequences that Saudi Arabia just, had to go to this, decision. And not only Saudi Arabia, it's the OPEC. So what are the consequences? These guys are starting to say, well, it's a relationship. Saudi Arabia, it aligns their energy policy with Russia's war. I mean, if you have any evidence, please bring it and say, on this date, this guy said, and these guys met somewhere and they communicated. I know the Russians met the Saudis, like 30 times or something, or 20 some times. Well, so did other countries. Are they part of the whole? You can't be paranoid. Come with evidence and say, okay, we got this one, and present the evidence and say, this was spoken over there, they signed this, they did this. It doesn't really work, like only verbal. Hey, we're going to do this, you're going to do that. Really, some things work like that, but I don't think they work like, oh, we're going to nail it to the United States right now, but only verbal, like in the Second World War. The Germans only verbalized their crimes. They never put them on the paper. They just said, we're going to do this to this, we're going to do this to this. It's just, they communicated with. The same with these guys, it seems like. Why? Because it's the same guys making our news and tell us how things supposedly are. So they are trying to, as I said, attack somehow OPEC, and in this case Saudi Arabia. And the response, I looked here and I don't see what the response would be. The only response that I found so far is weapons. The United States said that they will not sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. All right, they're going to buy for somewhere else. You're not the only one. So you lost that little thunder. But when you say that the Russian weapons or the Chinese weapons suck and only yours are the best, and then the Germans and the Brits and so on weapons, then everybody will buy yours. Like they're idiots. They don't know technology, and they can't assign the quality of a I don't know, missile system or something. It's only what you say. Well, some people are ran by this kind of, and some people are really doing their job and go and verify and say, okay, show me what you can do. It's like an interview. When a country goes to another country to buy something, they want to see it, they're going to inspect it, they want to see how it performs. You don't think it just looks at it and say, okay, show me some videos. No, I don't want to see some videos. I want to see the real thing right now. It's like on the job. When you go to an interview, they might ask you, okay, you're good at this. Okay, let me put you on the job and see how you do it. They can give you a probation period, 1 month, 3 months, whatever they're gonna do, and they see how you perform. That's the same thing, because they're talking about billions of dollars. So what are the consequences? Arms, you're not the only producer. You wanna be, but you're not. And I know you got the best ones in the world because you say so, but I think other people are not convinced about that. All right, so this is how friends treat one another. And maybe these guys should just be a little bit more self-aware of their actions, and maybe their actions create this kind of people who say, well, I don't want to deal with you, you're a thug. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.